Number 4.
Ravens at 4, number 1 total offense, number 1 rushing offense. Lamar Jackson is now 22-1 against the NFC. I worry about their pass defense. And this is going to be the big issue with this team, is they're going to play down. Even the games they play well and lead, I worry about them late in games. But you know I love me Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. I have him at 4.
Number 3.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Ravens have, at least offensively, having such a great, impactful win and doing exactly what you would want the Ravens to do versus the Commanders, and then still have them go back a spot, right? You had some teams leapfrog them because they were at 3 and now they're 4, and then it was the Lions game versus the Cowboys that seemingly then had the Lions now jump in front of the Ravens, which I find interesting because I think the Commanders are a better team than the Cowboys, but obviously what the Lions did was very impressive. So, and I think if it was up to me, I wouldn't really be ranking these teams 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I would just be saying they're in the same category, right? They're in the same tier. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that if I'm a Ravens fan. But it is interesting to see them move back, right? Like, you watch that game and it seems like a lot of people have moved Lamar Jackson up to the MVP. It seems like right now, actually, especially in terms of quarterbacks, you're looking at CJ Stroud, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson as the MVP candidates, which I think is pretty interesting. And I know Lamar Jackson fans are going to get angry that Josh Allen is up there. I'm not making the odds or the conversations. I have no control over that. So don't come at me over Josh Allen. That's not the scope of this video. But I do find it interesting that that Lamar Jackson has a great game. Derrick Henry, great game, right? All around great game for the Ravens off of a really tough competitor in the Commanders, and they get that win. But it doesn't move the needle as much as what the Lions did versus who the Cowboys, who I just really think are just not a good team right at the end. I don't think they're a trash team, but I just do not think they are a good enough team where it's like, what if the Lions did that against the Panthers? Would that have caused them to leave out? Like, was it so impressive? So it's like, that's what I'm just trying to figure out in terms of the perception of these teams. And again, the Minnesota Vikings, it makes sense, they're undefeated, and the Chiefs are undefeated. So I get why they're 1-2. It just makes sense from that perspective. And although I don't think you live and die by records, it still conceptually makes sense. The real question to me though then is, like, if the Ravens played the Lions, who do you think is going to win this game? Like, I think that's a fascinating matchup because I think both these teams, probably when it comes down to it, I think the Lions and the Ravens, and this will evolve as the season goes, they are the top 2 teams that have the more likelihood, a somewhat more reliable, massive punch, right? Just like, we can just pile it on you, right? We can just run all day, every day, and then when we need to throw, we can unload as well, right? Like, we got it. We do have some deficits on defense and can have some trouble in that situationally, but we have the ability to just, we like, the Lions can go up 21-0 in the first quarter, and the Ravens can go up 21-0 in the first quarter. Of course, other teams are capable, but it just feels like if you're a betting man, you're going to bet on the Ravens or the Lions to be able to do that more than any of these other teams, at least right now up to this point. And so that's what makes these teams, to me, so interesting to kind of compare, to be like, well, where should they be in terms of the rankings? It feels like Lamar and the Ravens are obviously playing with an incredibly a high amount of confidence. They're starting to gel. They're starting to understand their own identity. It seems like the coaching staff has also figured out, how do we integrate Derrick Henry into this offense? How do we feed off Lamar off of Henry and Henry off of Lamar, right? Like, how do we balance that all out? And it seems like they really understand it as well. So it's going to be interesting. Like, I said this, and I think it was on Mahomes Mountain or whatever it was. I don't remember. Or actually, maybe when it was the herd hierarchy, when I did all 10 teams, I was like, it's interesting because if you said the Ravens were going to play the Chiefs right now in a rematch, I feel like you'd have to say, I believe the Ravens, right? I believe that that offense is just so much more potent. I believe that Derrick Henry would be able to find a way. Now, granted, their defense for the Chiefs is just really great, and that will hamper some of the run game, especially for the Ravens. So it's understandable that things aren't going to look exactly as they have, because I actually talked about that in a different video as well. But I still think that the Ravens are just playing so much better and more intentional than they were in those first couple of weeks. It almost felt like maybe that they were just like, hey, we're already a great team. We got Lamar. We've been around the block once or twice. We're going to add Derrick Henry. Let's go. They really thought it was going to be more of a plug and play type situation. And it wasn't that, right? They had to figure stuff out. And it feels like they did. They're still not a perfect team. No team is perfect this year at all, quite frankly. I think most of these teams, I think all of these teams, quite frankly, are probably more closer to good than great and then elite, quite frankly, because they all have some flaws. But again, it's hard because some of the teams that had some of these issues were so early on in the season. Now you just have to figure out, well, were those early on in the seasons, was that just them figuring it out right now? Was that just some rust, whatever it may be? That's not actually really who they are. Or is who they are, but it's just, and it can come back at any moment. Like it's, that's part of the process of watching these weeks unfold and watching the games unfold. So I'm really excited to see what the Ravens kind of continue to do, if they continue to just understand the game plan, understand what their identity is. You have teams around the NFL now already making some trades and getting some players that people talked about wanting the Ravens to do, like Amari Cooper, Devontae. Obviously, now at this point, the Ravens haven't done that. And I'm just curious if the Ravens will make any moves, at the very least defensively, to try to boost their team, to kind of get them over that hump and make them a more formidable foe. But it does feel like right now, if the Chiefs played the Ravens would win, especially with the Chiefs' injuries. So I'm just curious to see if that continues throughout the season, right? Like if that perception, if that conclusion continues to be accurate. And because if it is, well, then what's stopping you from moving the Ravens higher, right? Or if you have more belief in what the Ravens can do, even though the Vikings are undefeated, what's giving you more confidence in, say, Sam Darnold and Jefferson versus, say, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, right? Like it's interesting. I'm this season is just shaping up to be so fascinating, so bizarre for honestly, for so many different ways and different reasons, that each game, honestly, I'm always learning something new and something is constantly coming up. So I am really curious to see if this will finally be the Baltimore Ravens year. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and being ranked fourth and actually moving back from originally being 3 and having the Lions surpass them? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.